not see a difference.
I just look at it again.
Why do you?
So I need to see Cardi at MetLife.
That's like a
Securities change again, bro. She like was talking shit. Bottom left. 50 cents per a cookie from that.
I'm gonna use your presentation for this. No. Not right now, I think. Okay, so you understand it's 5% of your grade. Okay, make sure you understand that. Next week, Adrian, Alex, Billy. Y'all are up. Okay? Is it finished? That's not so good at it. Well, what fucking good is that do? I'm not gonna get it. Look, wait. That's 17, right? Oh. You're looking at Tyler. That's so. I wasn't on the Tyler.
Alexander
I
Ledesma.
get it with both black. It's black history month wash. I get it. I was celebrating y'all, right? You're like, oh, I thought it was today.
That's good though.
Today. I'm like,
That's some good.
Extravagant?
Alright. Nigga, that was 2 weeks ago, bro. Give it a break. So the only one we have trading in is Derek. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then Adrian, you're sure you want to go? No. I'd rather fucking feel like I don't even know the camera or anything. Like my party sucks.
Let's go. Let's go, Derek Harris.
Yay, Derek.
Two.
Two.
That's the wrong one.
Dude, I want
Where's the right one then? I refuse to be picked up.
120.
What is trans? What does that even mean, Derek?
Oh shit. Derek, I have
Adrian, turn up.
what is that, man?
Yeah, what even is that, bro?
Wait. What's a
What is a trans?
Derek.
See with permission to smack anyone that has
Ask that question again. Fucking look like a vending machine or cafeteria now. Put your hand out of your pants and stop eating what's in it. There you go. Yeah, I looked at the thing too. I took the bite.
Alright. Well, before starting, slavery wasn't just translated to slave trade. Slavery has existed throughout the entirety of history. Going back to, I believe, the Neolithic times. So slavery was shown everywhere. It's in our textbooks, in our museums, or even in our history. Slavery dates back to the early Neolithic revolution. When they were first learning about domestication of slaves and animals. British saw this, right, and then there was a higher demand for slaves. So they could like build the solution, the British established their own slave trade route. It's made from all Africas to the Americas. Alright, this is the map, right? So basically, the Europeans are right over here, which is Europe, right? The Portuguese are over here. The Portuguese originally. The Portuguese, Portugal's right here. The Portuguese originally took these original right here, was Senegal, Arabia, Angola, and they took. All the way down to the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is in the middle of Africa. And they transported them to parts of South America, the Caribbeans, and the Americas. How was life as a slave? You got the pyramid, no race, no education. They were rigorous hours from sunrise to sunset. Your shelter, basically a wooden shack. You really have to, you time you work for food, and the crops you made, half it went to your slave master.
Why do you say you to be?
I was not.
Wait for after.
Alright.
See ya.
One of the main questions that first came to my mind was how many slaves were being enslaved? About 12 million slaves. 12 million slaves were being translated into slave trade. Right?
Is that during all of it? Like,
Yeah, 30 years entirety. And then why were they being treated so harshly? The slaves were treated poorly because their slave owners didn't see them as like, they saw them as like tools. Like for example, I have the hammer right there. That's like the value of the slave, basically. You gotta read the effects. The effects of the slave trade. The slave trade led to cuts in the people who were slaves and descendants of the The era of American slaves was one of the worst for the people around. Missionaries were forgotten and always stayed with us and do this whole black people.
questions?
So slavery was abolished in the United States in 1865, right? So you said that the transatlantic slave trade had ended by 1808. Was that just Europe and not including the United States? Or the United States was still taking people from Africa?
Yeah, from the article I read, which is this. Oh, he said yeah. It ended in Europe, but like you said, in 1868, that's when slavery was abolished.
It was, so the British Navy ended it in 1808. So there's a dramatic scene where they go into the slave trading house in Ghana and it essentially shut down the whole thing, actually bombed it. They cannonballed it. After that, there's actually a number of, like when you go in, I don't know if Gallerani covers it or not, there's a number of specific instances that occur in U.S. politics and history because there wasn't more access to the transatlantic slave route. And so you'll see instances where white Southerners try and kidnap black Northerners and put them back into slavery and things like that. There was a push to try and take people from the Caribbean and South America who were black. So there's a number of issues, but yeah, I mean, at that point then, I mean, I hate to use the term, but Southern plantation owners were essentially looking at breeding programs, right? They want black people to have enough black kids, so they continue slavery. Again, none of it got that far. It came to a head with the Civil War, and you know, we many of us at least know what the history was from there. But his dates were accurate as far as I know.
What's transatlantic?
Across the Atlantic.
What?
Translate.
Some of the label.
Alright, in the legend,
Hey, one other one. Your slide decks, is that a template from somewhere, or do you?
Yeah, I got it from slides ago.
Slides to go?
Yeah.
Well,
Just slides go.
It's just slides.
Cool.
It's a website.
Yeah, it's a cool, I like it so much, it's a cool format. Any other questions? Tyler, is yours up there? Is it done? Done?
Tyler, you have anything?
I
know I have
something, is it not?
Come on, Tyler.
I don't want it.
I don't expect Tyler to do that.
Three. Tyler, what's your presentation on, bro? What's your presentation on?
Sometimes like you take their
Well, in a whole class like this, there aren't too many other openings. Yeah. Last semester was more fun because like I let people actually use their laptops and they leave them open.
Was that a very good idea?
On their part now. So,
One, yo.
What'd you do?
alright,
What'd you do?
you know, I know we're not trying to spam finish our presentation here, Mr. Green, so there's probably never needed that laptop needs to be open. There's Mr. Santos, right? Okay, we went through, open up. We went through the midterm on Friday. Are there any questions on the midterm? You weren't here, you want it?
Oh, yeah.
The last thing he said we was gonna do is gonna watch the video of the combo. Yeah, you said you gonna watch the video.
What?
Teaching. This is false information. False ass information.
I'm gonna get Kevin's ass. I'm gonna get Kevin's ass. There's no one else on first lunch, so I have no one else to ask.
Guy Farrell.
He's at my lunch.
Second lunch.
Yeah, I don't have second. Yeah.
I don't know where it is. Oh, I did?
Yeah. No,
Like, I know I've seen it before, but it's not sitting in the file, so. Andrew. I didn't think he was ready.
Fuck happened, bro?
Well, you're gonna see your brother, right? You got nigga. Huh?
Your first aid kit in here?
No.
John, I go get a Band-Aid from West
Get out.
Zion.
That's not dress code. Like,
Yeah, like, why did you ask for a first aid kit?
Yo, like, what? Where? First aid kit is poorly.
Alright.
Have a good class. Now, it's not dress codes, eh?
Diamar, 5 pillars of Islam. Give me one. Evidence of that?
Salat.
I was safer. What is Salat?
The salat is the 5 obligatory, the 5 prayers that you have to do every day. If you are
Praying 5 times a day. It's not the actual prayer. Give me another one. Yeah, quickly. Hajj. Ah, the Hajj. What is the Hajj?
Preacher the Hajj is, when you do a certain thing, you go.
What's the word for that?
It's a pilgrimage.
Oh,
So back-
good.
Yeah, I just had to make sure it was pronounced right.
What? What is zakat?
It's a pay obligatory charity each year.
Okay. How much are Muslims supposed to give? No.
2.5.
Oh. Not their income,
Oh, no.
their wealth. The Shahada. What is it?
To say believe in one God and the prophet of Muhammad.
What is Siyam? Jerry?
Ramadan. Ramadan.
Ramadan.
No, wait, Mr. Mark's question. It says that the zakat is at 2.5%.
Yeah, of what?
Oh, so.
Of how many sheep they have? Like 2.5% of
I'm
what?
saying it's at income. So I'm saying like, it's income as well.
Ah, what is the difference between income and wealth?
I'm asking you, income is what you have, wealth is what you currently have right now. Literally, you said the same. It's just the
Same shit, bro.
It's the same thing I have.
Income is how much you make in a year. Right? Wealth is all of your assets and income together.
I was gonna say, like, isn't income like how much you get a year?
Yeah, it's like.
Alright.
It's okay, mistakes, bro.
I posted this slide deck on Classroom. You'll have access to it. I also posted the next one we're going to do. We left off here to learn about the Kaaba. This video is longish. It's about 18 minutes or so. All the videos, this video and the ones I showed on Thursday and Friday of last week, they are all potentially testable. So if you weren't paying attention the first time, make sure you've gone through and taken notes on them. And this one brings up a lot of interesting points, a lot of interesting historical points. See what you guys think about it. That's what you're about to find out. All right, really quick. Let's just see here. So you all in here.
It's an air fryer.
Never, no air fryer.
Did you air
You want to pay for my concert ticket? Yeah, you want to buy my ticket to the weekend? I want to see Playboy 30. Bro, I don't know. I think bro, probably like 100.
For 100K, you wouldn't wait. For 100K, you wouldn't go back to high school.
No shit.
500K.
I'm gonna need a lunch.
You're not going back for high school. 500K.
This is the Kaaba. Located in the city of Mecca in Saudi Arabia, the Kaaba is the holiest site in Islam. Every day, hundreds of millions of Muslims face toward it in prayer. Hotel rooms have arrows on their ceiling pointing toward it. Kings, emperors, and nation-states competed for control over it. And the need to know its relative location, no matter where you were in the world, sparked new developments in astronomy and trigonometry. So what is the Kaaba, and what makes it so important in Islam? The word Kaaba means cube in Arabic, though the building itself isn't exactly a cube. At about 15 meters tall and 12 meters wide, it's taller than it is wide, and its sides aren't exactly the same width, but it's pretty close. The building is made out of irregularly shaped granite stones, held together with mortar, with a flat wooden roof covered in metal. As you can imagine, it doesn't rain much in Mecca, but when it does, a flat roof on any building is prone to flooding. So a golden rain spout was added on the northwest side in the 1600s. Muslims worldwide pray in the direction of the Kaaba when they perform the daily prayer. The direction of prayer is called the Qibla, literally meaning direction, and it's marked in mosques around the world by a niche in the wall called a mihrab. At least once during their lifetime, if they are physically and financially able, Muslims are also expected to make a pilgrimage to Mecca to complete the Hajj. Outside of the Hajj, millions of pilgrims come to Mecca each year to perform Umrah, an optional but still meritorious pilgrimage. The Kaaba is housed in a larger mosque complex called the Masjid al-Haram. This building has been rebuilt, redesigned, and expanded over the centuries, with the most recent expansion project conducted between 2008 and 2023. This expansion allows the mosque to accommodate up to 3 million visitors at once, though it was not without controversy, since some elements of the project, including a controversial clock tower, were built over historically significant sites, including graves of significant early Muslim figures. The part of the Masjid al-Haram immediately surrounding the Kaaba is called the Mataf, literally the place of Tawaf. Tawaf is a key part of the Hajj pilgrimage, ritually walking around the Kaaba counterclockwise 7 times, though religious study scholars like to use the fancy term circumambulation, which just means walking around. Pilgrims must perform Tawaf when they first enter the Masjid al-Haram to signal their intention to begin the Hajj. They then perform it at least twice more during their pilgrimage, once before traveling to the area of Mina for the stoning of the devil, when pilgrims throw stones against a wall, and once as a farewell to end their Hajj. One of the key features of the Kaaba is the black stone, embedded in a silver case attached directly to the eastern corner of the Kaaba. Some scholars suspect that this black stone is a meteorite and trace it to a series of pre-Islamic Arabian shrines. Muslim tradition, however, connects it to Adam and Eve. In these accounts, the stone fell from heaven to help them find one another as they were separated while being cast out of the Garden of Eden. When they were reunited, they built the first altar to God on the site of the fallen stone. The stone has been broken into multiple pieces over its history.
Okay, so this is where you get into one of these sort of interesting questions about faith versus history. It is widely believed that the black stone, which is embedded in the Kaaba, is most likely a meteorite. There is a bunch of historical evidence that suggests that it predates Islam and was a part of local tradition and custom pre-Islam. He will explain in a minute that the site where the Kaaba actually is, they have some decent evidence to suggest that it was used for animal sacrifice and some other religious purposes for a pre-Islamic religion that was here. Meteorites, right, you're all familiar with them, they come down, meteorites or asteroids, they fall down often enough, generally hold a supernatural understanding or place in the world, because, you know, if you were there 2,000 years ago and you get this massive rock that comes down, a fiery mass from outer space, kind of sounds cool. You kind of wonder where the heck it comes from, particularly since, you know, you don't really know that there's anything out there other than the sun and the moon, and they all rotate around the Earth as opposed to the other way around. When Islam came over and took over this particular site, okay, and they were attempting to explain the significance of the rock and the Kaaba, right, they brought it into their own traditions and cultures and understanding. So there's sort of 2 interpretations that go on in Islam. One comes directly from Abraham, one comes from an explanation that it was a way for Adam and Eve to find each other after they were kicked out of the Garden of Eden. So you will find, you will find these debates that occur. They happen in Christianity, they happen in Judaism, Buddhism, you name it. What you end up believing, well, we don't know the answer, right? Historically, the evidence suggests that, this area was an area of worship in some form pre-Islam, but that's not all we know. So we'll go through some of the other points here.
First, it was damaged during a siege in 683 CE, and again during a theft by a Muslim sect called Karmatians, who held the stone for over 100 years. When it was regained, it was cemented back together and put back where it is now. The black stone is an important focal point for visitors and pilgrims who hope to get close enough to touch it or kiss it, There are even stories of pilgrims in the distant past seeking to smack their foreheads hard enough against the black stone to leave a permanent mark as evidence of their piety, though some Muslim theologians are skeptical of this level of focus on the black stone itself. Most theologians are quick to clarify that this is not understood to be worship of the Kaaba or the black stone, but instead, worship of God. There are various explanations for the symbolism of Tawaf. Some say it symbolizes how all creation orbits God. Others say it mirrors the orbit of the Earth around the Sun or the galaxy around its center. The number 7 itself is connected to the concept of 7 heavens in Islamic cosmology and is sometimes viewed as a number of perfection or completion. Though ultimately Muslims will often have a much more straightforward answer. Why should Muslims circumambulate the Kaaba 7 times? Well, because the Prophet Muhammad did so and because God commanded it. As they circle counterclockwise, pilgrims will pass several important features. Between the black stone and the doors, they'll pass what is known as the multazam, or place of clinging. Here, pilgrims perform supplicatory prayer called dua, and so pilgrims will try to press their hands, chest, and cheeks to the wall of the Kaaba while praying. Immediately after the multazam are ornate gold doors. At 2 meters above the ground, they're too high for anyone to access without stairs, but a mobile set of stairs can be wheeled in when necessary. The interior of the Kaaba is off limits to everyone except some dignitaries, religious scholars, and maintenance workers. It is not open to pilgrims. The inside is relatively empty, with 3 wooden pillars holding up the roof, a simple storage cabinet, and a collection of lamps and incense sensors strung between the pillars. The cabinet contains scented oils that are used in tandem with those sensors to anoint and perfume the Kaaba after its yearly washing. There's also a ladder leading up to the roof that's primarily used for cleaning and replacing the cloth that decorates it, called the kiswa. Now, here's an interesting thought experiment. Are you allowed to perform the daily ritual prayer within the Kaaba? Well, scholars debate this.
Why is that a debate?
Face it, every side of it.
Sorry, what?
Face towards every side.
Yeah, you gotta face towards the Kaaba, so how can you face it if you're inside of it?
Some argue that it is acceptable, but others argue it's not, since you'd technically be turning your back on at least some part of the Kaaba while praying. After passing the door, pilgrims will see a metal and glass display case to their right called the Station of Abraham. This protects the stone said to have the imprints of Abraham's feet. Now, there are multiple stories about what caused Abraham's footprints to be imprinted on this stone, but one of them claims that it commemorates when he stood on the stone to lift his son Ishmael up to complete the construction of the higher parts of the building. As pilgrims approach the edge of the northeast-facing wall, they'll see small brown stones embedded into white marble. This is known as the Musalla Jibril, or the prayer place of Gabriel, where the angel Gabriel is said to have taught Muhammad how to do the daily prayer. As they circle the corner, a structure called the Hatim will prevent them from hugging close to the northwest-facing wall. The Hatim is a low, semicircular marble wall that Muslims believe to be part of the Kaaba built by Abraham. Its name is derived from an Arabic root for something that is broken, referring to how this section was left in disrepair during later reconstructions. This area is also called the Stone of Ishmael. Most people claim it's named this because Abraham is said to have built a structure here for Ishmael and Hagar. Because it's said to be historically part of the Kaaba, pilgrims are not supposed to enter this area during Tawaf. The area is, however, connected to important events in the history of Islam and the life of Muhammad, so pilgrims will often attempt to pray within it. It's directly below the aforementioned rain spout, called the Font of Mercy. Water falling from the spout is said to carry extra blessings. After passing the Hatim, the remaining 2 sides don't have any unique features or sights. People performing Tawaf might use this space to angle closer to the building with the hope of getting close enough to touch the black stone or press themselves against the multazam during their next pass. While the Kaaba itself appears to be a relatively modest building, most people don't actually see it like this, because it's more often decorated with that ornate cloth called the kiswa. Today, the kiswa is mostly black with gold embroidery, though in the past it was made in a variety of colors, including red, white, and green. The embroidery includes decorative patterns and borders surrounding Quranic verses. Each corner of the kiswa also has a medallion embroidered with the name of each corner. One corner is named after the black stone, with the other 3 named after the region toward which they point: Iraq, the Levant, and Yemen, corresponding roughly to the cardinal directions. The kiswa is made of silk and produced in Mecca at a factory by over 100 workers and artisans, and is replaced once per year during the Hajj. The old kiswa can be cut up into pieces and distributed to museums and given as gifts. The Kaaba has a long history, but not all of it is completely clear to historians. According to the Quran, the first house of worship appointed for men was that at Bakka, full of blessing and of guidance for all kinds of beings. Bakka being an alternate name for Mecca, according to most Quranic commentators. Some Muslim interpreters say that this verse means that the first man, Adam, built the first altar to God in Mecca after being cast out of the Garden of Eden. Other verses in the Quran refer to Abraham building the Kaaba, And remember, Abraham and Ishmael raised the foundations of the house with this prayer: Our Lord, accept this service from us, for thou art the all-hearing, the all-knowing. Muslim interpreters agree that the Kaaba was built or perhaps rebuilt by Abraham and maintained by his descendants through his son Ishmael. However, according to Islamic tradition, after many generations, people forgot about its original purpose and started dedicating it to multiple gods. Writing in the 9th century, the historian of Mecca, al-Azraqi, shares several stories about Muhammad when he took control of the Kaaba in 630 CE. He discovered it full of images and statues of various gods. In total, he destroyed 360 idols, but he also found painted icons of the Virgin Mary and the baby Jesus, along with an image of Abraham, which he spared. According to tradition, there was also a statue of the god Hubal, an archaeologically attested deity from the region. Hubal is mentioned in a single Nabatean inscription from Hegra, an archaeological site a few hundred kilometers north of Mecca, which briefly mentions him alongside 2 other gods. Historians of early Islam have floated some theories as to what this early Kaaba may have looked like. An early Christian text called the Khuzestan Chronicle, which dates to around 660 CE, references an Arab ritual site in Mecca which can be translated as the Tent of Abraham. This may be a reference to the Kaaba as a tent-like structure. The Meccan scholar Ibn Jurayj, writing around 100 years after the Khuzestan Chronicle, seems to back this up when he describes the Kaaba as a tabernacle, using the same Arabic term used to describe the tent-like tabernacle built by the Israelites in the Exodus story. The scholar Uri Rubin has speculated that this might mean that the dominant element of the Kaaba at this time was the Kiswa. The scholar Ahmed al-Jalad has also theorized that the early Meccan sanctuary may be rooted in a pre-Islamic Arabian practice of building temporary ritual shelters to perform animal sacrifices. These are referenced in Safavidic inscriptions with the letters STR, so we don't really know how these structures were pronounced, but clearly they had a religious function. One inscription reads, "He built the STR shelter and performed an animal sacrifice. So, O Allah and Dusaris, may he be secure." Another reads, "He encamped by the water and then built the STR shelter and performed an animal sacrifice." Now, as I talk about in my video on the Quranic name of Jesus, Safavidic is an ancient South Semitic script that people in southern Syria and northern Jordan used to write all the various dialects of Old Arabic, which are closely related to Quranic Arabic. Scholars think the script was used between the 1st century BCE and the 4th century CE, give or take a few centuries. And it seems that part of ritual practice in the region involved building these temporary sacred shelters, both for sacrifices to the gods and for mourning the dead. So in light of the Khuzestan Chronicle, the writings of Ibn Jurayj, and these inscriptions, Dr. al-Jalad speculates that the roots of the Meccan sanctuary thus may be found in a ritual shelter like the STR. Stories about the Prophet Muhammad's life often start by highlighting the centrality of the Kaaba. Muhammad was born in the Year of the Elephant, named after a dramatic event in Islamic tradition when a Christian king from Yemen tried to invade Mecca and destroy the Kaaba using an elephant. King Abraha of Aksum was worried that the Kaaba would draw pilgrims away from his cathedral in Sana'a. According to Muslim tradition, when Abraha approached the Kaaba, his elephant refused to move forward. Eventually, the king forced the elephant to keep going, but before it could destroy the Kaaba, the sky filled with seagulls carrying rocks. They then dropped the rocks on the army, killing everyone, including the elephant. The Quran seems to refer to this in Surat al-Fil, the chapter of the elephant, which reads, "Seest thou not how thy Lord dealt with the companions of the elephant? Did he not make their treacherous plan go astray? And he sent against them flights of birds, striking them with stones of baked clay." Now, the scholar Gabriel Said Reynolds argues that the details about this event seem to be filled in by much later sources attempting to explain Surat al-Fil, though Muslim sources use this story to highlight the auspiciousness of Muhammad's birth and God's continued protection over the Kaaba despite its temporary dedication to other gods. According to tradition, the Kaaba played a significant role at other key moments in Muhammad's life. As a young man, he helped repair the Kaaba with men from each clan of the Quraysh tribe. But when it came time to place the black stone back into its spot, an argument broke out over who would get the honor. Each clan wanted one of their own members to place the black stone. Muhammad came up with a solution. He placed the black stone in the center of his cloak, and he had a member from each clan lift up part of the cloak together. Muhammad then guided the stone back into its place. This story speaks to his future role as a leader uniting the clans and tribes of Arabia. The Kaaba also plays a key role in Muhammad's ascension to heaven. According to the Quran and hagiographic stories based on Quranic verses, Muhammad traveled from the Masjid al-Haram to the Masjid al-Aqsa, and then up to heaven, all in one night. Though the Quran doesn't name their locations explicitly, they're understood to be the Kaaba in Mecca and the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. In these accounts, Muhammad prays with various prophets as he ascends through the seven heavens to meet God. These stories about Muhammad and the Kaaba reveal a few important points about its role in early Islam. First, it shows that the early Muslim community aimed to reclaim pre-Islamic sacred sites and practices by linking them to monotheistic traditions, as in the polytheistic character of the Kaaba is understood to be a corruption of its earlier monotheistic character, starting with Abraham. Second, it highlights how Muhammad's life is closely tied to the Kaaba, from being born in the year it was saved from destruction to restoring it as a site of worship for God before he died. As we mentioned, Qibla is the direction toward the Kaaba. This not only plays a major role in daily prayer, but it also played a role in early Muslim identity. Early in Muhammad's career, he and his followers prayed facing Jerusalem. But during his time in the city of Medina, the direction of prayer was changed from Jerusalem to Mecca. Quoting the Quran, "Now shall we turn thee to a Qibla that shall please thee. Turn then thy face in the direction of the sacred mosque." This verse is surrounded by discussions about how Christians and Jews rejected Muhammad's message, and linking the Kaaba to Abraham. The scholar Fred Donner argues that Muhammad and his initial followers probably at first saw themselves as a community in alignment with Judaism and Christianity, even possibly sharing prayer spaces with Christians and Jews. And the change of the Qibla from Jerusalem to Mecca may reflect tension with some of the Jewish tribes in Medina, once it became clear that they were not going to accept his revelation as he anticipated. This change in the direction of prayer would have left Muslims in Medina facing south, while Jews and Christians would have likely faced east during prayer, creating an obvious distinction between the followers of Muhammad and other monotheists in the region. In daily practice, one should pray facing Mecca with nothing symbolically between themselves and the Kaaba. It's poor etiquette to walk in front of someone who's praying, and some may stop and restart their prayer if, for example, an animal walks in front of them while praying. But what if you cannot determine the direction toward the Kaaba? This became an issue in the 20th century with the invention of air and space travel. In 2006, the Malaysian astronaut Sheikh Muzaffar Shukor was tapped to go up to the International Space Station during Ramadan. This prompted the Department of Islamic Development in Malaysia to create guidelines for how to fulfill religious obligations in space. How are you supposed to orient your body toward the Kaaba when circling Earth in microgravity? They eventually decided that any Muslim in space should try to orient themselves toward the Kaaba if they can reliably do so using the best scientific analysis. Though if they can't be certain, then simply directing themselves toward Earth is sufficient. But if even that isn't possible, then an astronaut can simply orient themselves toward wherever. This process highlights a few interesting things about Islam. First, it shows that, contrary to some non-Muslim stereotypes about Islamic law, the rules for Islamic jurisprudence are meant to be flexible and achievable by your average person. We see this in how the Qibla is meant to be determined on the International Space Station. While they should attempt to make a good faith effort to locate the direction of the Kaaba, if this is not possible, then they can simply face any direction they want. Also, reflecting on Islam and the Kaaba highlights how place matters a lot in religion, even when discussing a global religion like Islam. A lot of us are accustomed to thinking about religion in line with Protestant Christianity, thinking about religion as being internal, belief-based, and private. But most religions throughout history and around the world have beliefs and practices that orient them toward a particular land, city, building, or place, which connects them to a larger religious community. This religious community is felt in a very powerful sense when going on the Hajj, as pilgrims are surrounded by millions of fellow Muslims drawn to the center of it all, the Kaaba. In 2023, over 2 million pilgrims traveled to Mecca for the Hajj. For any city, this is an absolutely massive influx of people. So how does the city's infrastructure manage? If you want to learn more about how the Saudi government pulls it off, I recommend checking out Wendover Productions' video on the logistics of the Hajj. They explain the dedicated Hajj terminal at the Jeddah airport, the mass transit system shuttling people from site to site, and the massive air-conditioned tent city at Mina. This is one episode in a longer Wendover series about logistics, which you can watch exclusively on Nebula. Nebula is a streaming platform owned and operated by creators like me. This is my Nebula page right here. You can watch all of my videos there early and ad-free. We've been making big moves over at Nebula. We've redesigned the whole website by adding categories. Each category is kind of like its own mini-service, so if you're interested in history, click on the history category. If you're interested in science, we have the science category, and the brand new Nebula News category, where you can keep up to date on world events. I'm under the history category, and
So is it really that flexible, or is he just saying that like the laws are meant to be flexible? Like,
So, you actually asked a potentially more complicated question, and it's a really good one. you know, there's over 1 billion Muslims in this world. Okay?
So they each have like a different perspective on it.
The large majority of them practice their faith and are highly flexible and interpret it as best as they can to live their life. Just like in Christianity and Judaism, however, there are different sects or groups or divisions that interpret things differently. Okay? So one of the leading groups in Sunni Islam for the past 100 years is a group called the Wahhabis. Okay? Largely based out of Saudi Arabia, made their own political deal with the Saud family back in the early 20th century, and in return for granting the Saud family authority, in return, the Wahhabis got to have their brand of Islam brought to the forefront, and their brand was a lot more conservative and everything else. There's been offshoots of the Wahhabi faith. You get ones like what you see pictures of Afghanistan, right? Which, from our perspective, at least from a Western perspective, look crazy backwards, right? Women who are in full burqa, who have metal slits on the eyes and the mouth, right? I don't know if you've actually even seen
No,
that.
you should picture that.
What one looks like?
Yeah, the metal slits. I've never seen that.
Well, yeah, there are some that are really, really
Well, why does some cover their eye, their one side face?
You look like ninjas.
I don't see any up here.
Ezekiel, really? Super disrespectful, super offensive.
But I have actually seen in my travels ones where, I mean, literally it's the slightest of a slit for both the mouth and for the eyes, and sometimes there's even, it's not metal, but it's like a beaded chain that sort of comes down. My favorite one was one in Cairo where I watched this woman who, well here, there you go. That's like the telephone. There, oh, there's a.
that don't be that bro.
Cause what?
There you go.
Bro, what?
So, I saw this one in Cairo, so the woman had a very small slit, and then she had these massive sunglasses that were about this thick that she was wearing on top while driving like a motorcycle. And I'm like, there's no freaking way you can see anything. The Taliban in particular in Afghanistan have implemented a very, very conservative fundamentalist interpretation of Islam. I mean, if you talk to, I don't know, what do you think of the Taliban and their interpretation of Islam? What? You don't notice? I mean, when I talk to my Muslim friends, they're like, hey, there's crazies in all religions. What are you gonna do about it, right? I mean, and it's true. I mean, there are crazies in all religions. You've got people in Catholicism who believe that the wife should stay at home and pop out kids and do nothing else. You got that in Judaism as well, right? Even my mildly conservative Jewish friends will call those people the penguins, because they're the ones who wear like all black and white. They look like they're dressed from like the 19th century, and they have like 30 kids, and they raise them on a farm and educate them themselves. So, ultimately, you'll forever see this back and forth, this fight between liberalism and conservatism. You see it in politics, you see it in religion, you see it in everything else. So, any other questions? Huh? Okay, so we're going to go through the early life of the Prophet Muhammad. Okay? And hopefully we'll have the rest of our presentations submitted at some point maybe this week. Alright? Who still owes me?
Tyler Green.
I got you tomorrow.
And from last week? Scott?
I'll get my phone.
So. Alright. Actually, I'm just putting something around. Alright, so here's our map of the Middle East, right? We have Yemen, Oman, you got the UAE, Qatar, Bahrain up here, you got, you know, Egypt, Israel, Jordan, and so forth. We all know that Saudi Arabia is a big country in the Middle East. The other one. So Mecca, which is located here, Medina up there, just to give you some geographical, ideas of what we're talking about. And Muhammad was actually born in 570 in Mecca. Okay. While he was orphaned early, worked as a merchant, but married wealthy. He married an older woman by the name of Khadijah, okay, who was a wealthy widow. And they had several children. What? Correct. So, he's 25. They said that she's about 40. And, she had married well, had money. And so Muhammad was not necessarily a poor guy, but wasn't crazy or wealthy either. He was in a powerful clan, but wasn't necessarily at the center of politics. He is.
Do you have a card there?
I don't think that one.
And he made his living as a merchant. Okay. For any of you who have traveled, have you ever seen like a piece of jewelry or something like that looks like a hand? Yeah, sometimes, well, we'll talk the eye. Sometimes it's an earring, sometimes it's a necklace. You might see it as a bracelet. It's called the Hand of Fatima. That's actually what it's called.
Oh,
Fatima is Muhammad's daughter.
Yeah.
It's a tattoo that was seen there. So you'll come across it. The eye is even more fascinating.
Tyler Bennett. Everybody hates Chris.
They have them in all forms now. They become quite popular. Here's one with the evil eye.
What does the flower
I don't
symbol?
know the show everybody hates Chris.
I don't know.
Who is it, Chris from?
Yeah. And then this is what you guys were talking about with the eye.
Yeah.
So the eye is actually really cool. So depending upon which culture you're talking about, but the eye is known as the evil eye. And it is a talisman that you would put up in your house to ward off evil spirits. It is a talisman that predates Islamic culture, as far as we know, and is used throughout all the way into Eastern Europe, certainly through all of the Middle East, Northern Africa, you name it, and has made its way over even into the Americas, and so you can see aspects of the evil eye that are used in certain indigenous South American cultures. I have Persian friends. The evil eye is all over the house. Like, it's just something that you put up as sort of like a good luck symbol. It, like I said, it comes back to a day and age where people believed in spirit gods and had a polytheistic view of the world. And if you didn't want to be attacked in the night by an evil spirit, you would carry or wear something that had the evil eye on it, because when they see it, they get scared and, you know, the evil spirits run away. So, and I don't know how this is the case, somehow the evil eye and the hand of Fatima have gotten weaved together. You can find jewelry all over the place with both of them on there. And a large portion of the Islamic world and decent portions of the Christian world have embraced the evil eye as something not exactly part of their faith, but it certainly weaves into the culture. You use evil eye to protect you from evil spirits.
But you said something different.
You know, I mean, like that's kind of like the evil eye is like what sees you, but like by having the evil eye up, you're being protected from that specific spirit. And like I said, the fact that it has, like, this thing has traveled across the entire world and embraced in different cultures, to me is very fascinating, because it's, you know, why, like, what is the similarity, or why do people of different cultures and religions all end up tending or gravitating towards that? There's a number of what you call animist or pagan symbols, traditions, festivals that have been incorporated in a number of religions, not just like in one spot, but sort of around the world. And we don't have any idea why, but it's interesting to see it, because you're like, okay, well, were trade routes sufficient that it got out there? Like, how do they have the same thing? We don't know the answer, but it makes you ask more questions. All right. So, so Muhammad's first revelation occurs in 610 CE, at the age of 40. We talked about how he was in a cave at the time, and the angel Jibril, or Gabriel, okay, from a Christian perspective, it's Jibril, and he was told to recite certain verses from the Quran. He continues to have these revelations, and the angel Jibril, reveals to him the entire text of the Quran. Muhammad goes back after each of these sessions, and in some fashion talks to his scribe. A scribe is a person who writes for you, because Muhammad did not know how to write, he was illiterate. Okay? And the scribe supposedly wrote him down pretty much as Muhammad was saying. So as far as we know, the lines from the Quran were written almost contemporaneously, meaning at the same time. He began preaching about this revelations in Mecca, okay? And he was preaching monotheism, which was not accepted generally by the people there who were polytheistic. And he eventually gets kicked out of Mecca. So again, he has his first one in 610. He attempts to convert people in Mecca, doesn't work. And so, in facing this increased hostility, he moves to Medina. So he and his followers, they migrated there in 622 CE. The move from Mecca to Medina is called the Hijra. Word is spelled up there. And the Hijra actually becomes sort of year zero for the Islamic calendar. So if you subtracted 2025 minus 622, all right, you would find out what year it is right now in Islam. Is that right? So, but that's sort of their birth of Jesus moment, where they decided to start their calendar from, the date that they marked it as.
Oh, 622.
Oh, so like, no,
It's only a stupid question if we know. Try.
alright, so like, say like, you like, if you live here, would you follow like our calendar, or like, would you still go by this calendar?
Yeah, okay. It was,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm joking. I mean, look, the majority of the world, certainly for business purposes, has adopted the Western calendar. Okay? If you live in a Muslim country, they will generally run things off of the, you know, the Muslim calendar. And they'll do so for legal documents, for banking documents and things like that. Anytime, this is where I guess I'll call it, if you were a Islamic company, you were doing business, like say you're based in Saudi Arabia, and you were doing business with somebody in Europe, right? When you sign all these legal documents, part of the agreement is specifying under whose jurisdiction law will be decided and determined. And for a variety of reasons, almost every company would decide to have law determined under UK law in the Europe. Just like most companies here want to do it under Delaware law. Because Delaware has the most simplistic business law cases out there, and so most companies incorporate in Delaware, and they would have, you know, or they might have it done in New York or something like that. It just depends. So if they were doing it all in the Middle East, it would be decided probably out of Jordan or, you know, some other major city, and all the documents would have Muslim calendar on there. So, but not that question. I mean, you know, that it just, that's, you can change all those things. You just have to make certain that all parties know what they're talking about. Okay. So in 622, the Hijra occurs, and Muhammad and his followers moved to Medina. Two of his early followers are his cousin Ali and his friend Abu Bakr. Okay, two names that you'll hear again soon, not too long. Okay. So while he's in Medina, okay, Muhammad continues to preach, and you know, we don't know exactly how or why it happened, but he becomes a believer and a political leader in Medina, and he actually manages to unite the city's various tribes under his authority. And together they become the first Islamic community known as the Ummah. So, ultimately what happens over the next few years, tensions begin to flare between the tribes in Mecca and Medina, and they go to war, okay?
Fox, how does he like get people to listen to him in the first place? Like, how do they, like, why don't they just say like, what the fuck are you talking about? And just like, don't listen.
Well, we had this conversation about, like, Jesus comes up to you on MLK in Springfield.
No, I know, but I just don't get it. How he started.
He said he was illiterate, right? So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't have an answer for you. Yeah.
but you're just asking hundreds, right?
Well, I mean, but like, not even that long ago, this guy named David Koresh got like, I don't know, 70 people in Waco, Texas, moved into the commune with him, joined his religion, where he was the prophet, give up all of their money and their wives to him, and he could screw them at leisure. Okay, any one of them, no doubt. Whatever he wanted to. And they stockpiled weapons until the FBI went in and raided the whole thing and blew it up. Well, that's a different issue. There's actually movies out and stuff on Ruby Ridge and on Waco and whatever have it. But I mean, this, Rory, like, this was 20 years ago, or 30 years ago, I guess now. I don't even remember. I mean, it was in the 90s. So, like, this shit still happens. I don't have an answer for you. I mean, there's just a lot of crazy shit that happens, and, like, some people just want to be led. Or as Marilyn Manson said, some people just want to be used. Some people just want to be abused. That's all I can tell you. I think a Marilyn Manson quote would be good. Alright. Alright. So eventually, like I said, they had a bunch of skirmishes. I mean, these aren't like crazy big wars. I mean, I don't know how many people were involved or anything else. I've never really found any particularly good numbers as to how big this area was. But in 630, okay, Muhammad enters Mecca. And actually at this point he had gotten strong enough that he actually enters Mecca peacefully and everybody surrenders. And he walks in, he goes into the Kaaba, cleanses it of all what he considers the false idols, and redirects its worship to Allah. Okay? In 632, he delivers his final sermon, and then he dies. And he died in Medina in 632. Now, remember he dies, and there is a story in Islam about his resurrection and ascendancy into heaven. And if you recall, he ascends to heaven from where? Thank you. The Dome of the Rock. And if we went back to our map here, let's just be clear. We are not talking about, like, he physically went from here to here. Okay? This is a spiritual journey. Okay? His spirit somehow ended up in Jerusalem, and on this rock, he ascends to heaven. And that is why, Muslims consider the Dome of the Rock such a holy spot for that. Okay? So, again, born in 570, dies in 632. Okay? He lived a good life, was 62 years old. Alright? We know that he got these revelations from Jibril, the angel Jibril, or Gabriel, that gave him the inspiration for the Quran. These were copied down by a scribe, and he provided, through his sermons and his preachings, he provided interpretation of the Quran, and that became what are known as the Hadith. Okay? The Hadith are Muhammad's guidance and interpretation of the messages provided to him from the angel Jibril. Hadith is Hadith. And so the holy book for Islam is made up of the divinely inspired word of God that was provided to Muhammad, and these hadiths, which are Muhammad's interpretations of
How do you spell that?
Hadith.
Wait, who was the scribe? Is he like named or no?
He has a name I don't recall off the top of my head. Alright. Do you know it? The Muhammad scribe who wrote everything down. Because Muhammad couldn't write, he was illiterate. Yeah. He's like, it's well known, but I don't like, it's sort of secondary, I guess. You guys, trying to hear a question here.
Okay, this might be another stupid question, but like, cause you know how like cause like I'm still trying to like wrap in my head of like why people fall into like the illiterate, like him being illiterate. Like I was still trying to wrap my head around it. It was like miracles. Like could he like perform miracles or stuff like that, or just like he was just some guy.
I think there was something miracle-esque, but it's not in the same way that like Jesus had all these miracles. But like, you know, I mean, put it this way. Have you ever read a scientific explanation for some of the miracles that Jesus did?
Yeah.
Like walking on water, right? I mean, it's largely believed that they think they may have found where it happened, and there's a point in time in the low rain season where there's a bunch of rocks that protrude from it just underneath the water, and you can literally cross over it. There's explanations for it. Maybe you believe the scientific one. Maybe you believe the faith one. We can't prove it either way. I mean, all that people did was they went looking and said, okay, well, is there anything that matches this description based on where he was? They found one. They found a situation that might happen. Turning water into wine. And, you know, I mean, well, healing people can easily be explained, right? I mean, if you accept the fact that it doesn't happen right away, could you do something that, you know, I mean, given how medical practices work, could you do something that would have been novel and interesting? I mean, turning water into wine. Was the water flavored with, you know, fruit skins? You add a little sugar to it, and you get jailhouse gin. You know what it is? You know jailhouse gin? You guys don't watch that TV. Yeah, in the toilet, right? Where you take like fruit juice, you throw it into the toilet, you add on some basic fruit peels and sprinkle a little bit of sugar, and it becomes booze. Right? It's what? Well, they clean out the toilet, and like so one person doesn't have a toilet, and then they all drink the booze off. Yeah, like you know, I'm not comparing the same, but
I drink it.
we talked about it. It's Campeche. It's a Mexican one. Campeche. This is my wife does it. She takes leftover pineapple skins, right? She throws them in water with a little bit of brown sugar, and she lets them ferment for a week or two. And it makes like kombucha. Like, is it a big alcohol? No, but you know, has a little bit of alcohol content to it.
Good for you.
So they claim it. I mean, a lot of people claim it is. You know, but like, you know, Campeche, kombucha, jailhouse gin. Maybe Jesus did the same thing with water into wine. But we don't know, right? I mean, that's scientists attempting to put an explanation onto an event because they believe everything needs to be rational and understandable. Could Jesus just as likely have turned water into wine? Maybe. But that's that faith element, right? You know what I mean? So, and these are things that we just don't know, okay? All I can tell you is that the idea of getting a large amount of people to follow you doesn't happen all the time, but I can give you like a dozen examples, okay? Right? Everyone hear about, you know, the phrase drinking the Kool-Aid?
Yeah.
Do you know where it comes from?
They all drink and they all die.
Correct. It was Jonestown, right? In Guyana. And they were worried about getting raided by the FBI, right? Because they thought that they were kidnapping people and brainwashing them. And the guy who ran the thing, they distributed out glasses of cyanide-laced Kool-Aid to everybody. Like 800 people or something crazy. And as the FBI shows up with a bunch of senators and congressmen, everyone drinks the Kool-Aid. And, I mean, many people died, they saved some of them and everything else. But that's where that phrase, I think he's drank the Kool-Aid, comes from. Meaning that they've lost sense of, you know, reason and logic that they're willing to die, like, because they drank the Kool-Aid. One of the answer choices on the midterm was the, whoever's got it, Reverend Young, whatever Moon? Reverend, Sun Young Moon, whatever. They're a Korean Christian cult known as the Moonies. Okay? Not religious, but they had the sex cult one just a couple years ago with all the Hollywood stars.
What?
NXXEM or something like that. Where they got like the initials branded on it, and like you had to perform for the leader. So, like, religious now. So, but anyways, Rory, if you want to join a cult, there are lots of opportunities in this world. Okay? If you don't want to join a cult, just say no. Guys, have a good day.
Hey, just say no, Rory. Just say no.